the MS doesn't sell himself out or doesn't give up. It's a mantra that a lot of people use, and it was a mantra that a lot of the homeboys took into it, because a lot of homeboys, as you guys know and I have told you before, came from the militia guerrilla factor. So when the guerrilla factor FMLN took about and then it got split into different groups, a lot of homeboys that were either from that group became MS members that flew to LA. But we also, within the group of MS-13, within the faction, within the organization, you guys have to understand, they also have soldiers, people in the military, people that serve in the army that have AWOL and have fled the country to come to the United States because they either didn't agree with what the army was doing, or they didn't like that the army was doing all this killings, all this rapists and all this stuff. And I said rape because it was well documented that there was a couple of squads, military squads, that would go to the little villages, come and rape the women, the children's, and then leave and threaten them if they would say anything. There were trials that took place. The two sergeants got locked up. They got served time, and there was the squad leaders that also did time behind those. So you have to understand, MS had soldiers, ex-soldiers, and it had ex-military, ex-guerrilla members from the militia. So their mind, the mentality worked a little different. They used to conduct themselves like a militia group. MS had hierarchies. We all know that. The hierarchies always, it comes down to the leader. So what they call the ranflero. Then you have the corredor, which is the key runner or the click runner that that gets the order from the leader, they pass it down to the click. And then you had the soldiers as well, the soldados. And underneath the soldados, you had the chequeos, the checks, the people that are actually kicking, trying to earn the letters or trying to become homeboys. Where within those factions, a name arose around the time when this whole thing with the peace treaty was taking place in 2015, 2014. And he started becoming outspoken against Diablito and the leaders of the faction that were trying to do peace treaty. Shorty from Fulton Locotes was a well-known figure within MS. He probably wasn't a high-ranking MS leader at that time, but he has his juice in his pool because he was 40 years old. He was known in LA. He had done his time in LA, and he was incarcerated also in El Salvador. So he had his program, which belonged to him, was the Fulton program, the Fulton Locotes. Well, he established himself in the man in commander respect because he was knowledgeable, he was intelligent, but he also had a strategy. He was well known within the system. A lot of leaders and homeboys knew him and knew that he had a little bit of juice within the other cliques. See, you gotta understand, cliques have always existed. MS had about 249 cliques, and it has about 48 programs. So there have always been frictions and fractures within those programs within the cliques. So at one upon a time, they were gonna design a program when the Ranfla Nacional, the national car or the national Ranfla, became about. They were gonna design a program that was gonna be everything that has to do with LA was gonna be called the Program 213. Everything that has to do with the homeboys from the East Coast down the line, it was gonna become the East Coast program, which is still in progress. Anything that has to do with El Salvador was gonna become the 503 program, which is a trip if you pay attention to what I'm gonna say, because later on the 503 became known as the Peseta program, the PC program, which was foul because El Salvador as a whole is a 503 country. That's why a lot of homeboys from here cannot get that to the 503 anymore, because if you landed in jail over there, you will be considered a PC. So Chory from Fulton Locotes start holding meetings, start speaking up to other llaveros, ranfleros, other key holder members within these cliques. Actually, he actually gained the backup of older cliques programs, cliques that were known, homeboys that were known in the program. At that time, Fulton was older program. Fulton's always been an older program. But one of the first barrios, the cliques that came out was the homeboys from Parbius. He had the backing of the homeboys from Parbius. He had the backing of the homeboys from Normandy. And he was trying to get the backing of the homies from Hollywood, which was taking, and he knew it was gonna take him a long time to get the backing, and maybe it wasn't gonna happen because the Diablito from Hollywood was down there. And Diablito's a well-known figure. Yes, he's from LA over here. He was jumped in LA. He did his thing. Then he got deported back to El Salvador, and he became this well-known figure in the MS world as Diablito de Hollywood. Why he perpetrates himself that way? Because this is something that happens a lot when homeboys from here LA get deported over there, and they either held the position here before or they were well known. Once they landed in El Salvador, they automatically want to take over the cliques. So if you belong to Hollywood clique or you belong to a 7-Eleven, Vagos, Coronados, whatever clique you belong to, usually if you're done time and you're getting deported, the homeboys had the mentality, I got that coming, that's me. And that's always been a big issue within amongst ourselves as an organization, because the homeboys in El Salvador didn't like and didn't respect it, that anybody from here can just come and say, this is my clique now, I'm taking over. Without even asking and without even saying, hey, que onda, what's going on, what's cracking, looks, I'm so and so, but I would like to take over the clique so I can get some fed and get back to over there. No, it was just like, this is my clique now, it's dead point. A big example of that, which I will tell the story in another video, is the story of the homeboy brothers, Rebelde's brother. So Rebelde's brother was the homeboys for Normandy. And he went to El Salvador and tried to take over El Salvador, and he ended up getting killed. I won't mention his name yet because I will make a video regarding that. But it became a big issue because they had got a couple phone calls with Rebelde trying to make his own brother get killed. So I will break it down to you guys in another video, but it had happened like that before. Homeboys from here get deported and they automatically think they got that coming. So it becomes a big deal and it becomes a big friction. Well, Shorty had got the backing of a lot of older homeboys that didn't agree and didn't see eye to eye with the Ranfla Nacional. They didn't agree with what they doing because it had came out during these meetings that they had took that the homeboys from that program that they had gotten some benefits from the government due to the speech tree. And it came out that they had gotten over $25 million on benefits for them. It came out that Diablito had Greñas, one of his lieutenant Greñas, that he owned basically a car sale parking lot where he used to sell cars. So when Shorty said, you know what, these fools are getting money, we don't know, they're selling ourselves to the devil, we don't know what they're doing, because it was never passed down to what they were doing to the lower ranks. It was just amongst them, Diablito, Crook, Sierra, Gareñas, Piwa. There was a lot of individuals. The 12 disciples of Diablito, that money has stayed within that group. It had never spread down to the other homeboys. And a lot of homeboys felt disrespected because supposedly when the idea got presented to the peace treaty, the way they pitched it to the homeboy was, this is going to be bettering for the barrio. This is going to be bettering for the bettering of the homeboys. For the homeboys that locked up that doesn't have no family, we're going to make sure they're okay. We're going to give them feria. We're going to do this. But it didn't happen. Diablito started buying houses, big old mansions. His Jaina was running around driving with a big old fucking nice car. Crook, the same thing, had bought a big old house. And this was all documented. Some of their lieutenants were living on big old houses with big ass plasma TV where there was homeboys in the streets fighting the war that didn't even have an actual bed to sleep in. So Shorty felt some type of way, and there was a lot of homeboys that felt some type of way. I myself, back then when I was pushing that movement, felt some type of way as well. Not because I didn't want a peace treaty, but because I thought that the homeboys were using the organization for their own benefit gain, for their own beneficial gain, and for their own money purpose. And a lot of people felt the same way. These dudes are over here buying houses. These dudes having car sales. These dudes having buying hyenas are driving foreign cars. These dudes are having this. They having conjugal visits. They having all of that. And the homeboys on the lower ranks that are putting in the work wasn't even seeing a soap or soup or anything. The purpose for that point was supposedly to get every homeboy a TV, to make sure they have a TV, to make sure they have clothes in the prison, to make sure if a homeboy ever passed away that the jefita had their funeral covered, to make sure that the homeboys that were out there battling and risking their life had a little money in their pocket. That was the agreement they had came down to when they proposed them to do the peace treaty, but nothing was being done. They were using MS as a whole, the organization as a whole, for their own beneficial gain. And the government was happy because they agreed that there wasn't going to be no killing, and they had kept the end of the bargain. Of course, Bukele had also dealings with that. We have proven facts. We have shown picture. I have shown you guys a video of Bukele's security men meeting up with gang members or taking gang members from one prison to another. Well, when the Ranfla Nacional got wind of what Shorty was doing, that he was vouching, that he was talking and saying things trying to get the homeboys riled up, he got to the point that he was calling himself MS-13 Revolucionarios, MS-13 Revolutionaries, which is something that didn't sit well with a lot of homeboys because you had 18th Street Revolucionarios and you had 18th Street Sureños. So for him to call himself a revolucionario, we get the understanding where he was coming from, that he was trying to be a revolutionary for the hood, that he was trying to create new ideas and everything. But a lot of people wasn't feeling the name and wasn't feeling what he was doing. But it wasn't his fault. I couldn't blame him because a lot of people have promised things and they weren't coming through for it. So he started holding meetings inside jail and in the streets trying to create a whole revolutionary team to attack and dismantle these high leaders that were in places and trying to attack them, which was going to be a big task. And I think he knew that because he walked around in Izalco where he was locked up. He walked around with 4 security guards. So when he was in Izalco, he had made it clear. He was voicing his opinion publicly and held them meetings with the homeboys saying that he didn't like him because the quid pro quo that the homeboys were doing was just beneficial for them. It was not benefiting the barrio. He believed there was at least $25 million given away. And then he believed out of those $25 million, $2 million had went to the campaign of Bukele to support him because he was going to come in after the Mano Dura, after all the parties I said, and they were trying to put him back in a chair. They were trying to have basically a puppet in the White House, which it didn't play out the way that they wanted to. They thought, because you see what happened, the betray. And everybody saw that coming, that he was going to betray them because he did it the first time when he promised them that he was going to give them a TV. He was going to give them that. And then he took everything away. He started taking visitors away. So the homeboys did the whole killing in one day. Do I agree with how they went about it? No, I don't agree with it. Not one bit. I don't agree with them going out there and killing innocent people, innocent grandmas, innocent grandpas, innocent older men. I don't agree with that bloody day that took place on that day that they killed so many people. But I knew what they were coming from. And they were trying to get the attention of Bukele, but they got it the wrong way, which it turned to what now became the state of reception where everybody's locked up. But Shorty kept making this public that he was going to go against them, that he was going to do it, that he didn't like what they were doing. So while he was in Izalco, he surrounded himself with 4 bodyguards just to make sure that anything would come place. Well, it got back to the homeboys. that Shorty was doing this, that he was making things public. He was trying to dismantle the organization. So they held the meeting their own, the high-ranking members, the leaders of the faction, and they came to the conclusion that Shorty had to go because he was a threat to their faction and he was a threat to what they were trying to do. So the plan to murder Shorty started getting hatched in late 2015 in Zacatecolucas, where a lot of the high-ranking members were locked up. Zacatras, as is well known. It became developed. The way they were gonna plan it to get the word to the people in Izalco, where Shorty was housed, was because they needed to figure out how they wanted to get word. They know they couldn't just send palabra just to the old proper channels because it could have gotten accepted, and they feared that maybe somebody, one of the believers of Shorty or one of the dudes, would try to stop it or try to give Shorty heads up. So how did they do it? They figured it out when an inmate, a homeboy from MS that was housed in Zacatecoluca, was gonna go to court for a regular hearing, and a homeboy from Izalco that they knew they could trust was going also to court for a regular hearing, and they saw the opportunity right there and there to put their plan in motion to kill Shorty. So what do? They strike up a Huila. They give it to the homeboy that's going to court from Zacate, and they specifically telling you need to give it to a specific person. This homeboy already know he's gonna be expecting this Huila, and they needed to take action ASAP. That's how the plan was put in place, and it worked perfectly, just like the designer. The two individuals go into court. They get put in the same tank. The homeboy from Zacatecoluco, Zacatras, gives the Huila to the homeboy this house in Izalco, where Shorty's house, and tells them this need to be done ASAP. He gets back, read the Huila, sees that it's being basically said Shorty has to go because he's disrespecting the older heads, he's disrespecting the homeboys, he's disrespecting the barrio, and the barrio would not tolerate any disrespect. So the plan to kill Shorty was put in motion. Did he see it coming? I don't think so. Did he probably feel that it was going to happen? Yeah. He knew that he was shooting at the dark and he was shooting long range because he knew that maybe some people weren't going to support him. They were going to back. So La Ranfla Nacional was angry. They were mad because they felt in threat that Shorty and his representative were going to expose what they were doing. So they were livid. They were angry. So they developed the plan to just take out one of the older homeboys and try to paint him like he was a traitor. So when they put this plan in motion, they went through the proper channel, started talking to homeboy. Look, this dude's mad. He's trying to expose us, saying they were hypocrites, which they were. They were hypocrisies. But Diablito and the other people had the backing of a lot of programs. They had the backing of a lot of homeboys. And that's all they needed. For the homeboys to have their back so they can go to the streets, say Shorty's nobody. He don't got no say-so in here and we're going to kill him. So in November 2015, when these two individuals go to court, they pass that guy and they give it to him. And they tell him this is what needs to be done. I don't think the homeboy from Izalco really knew what was being asked of him at that time. Because if he was caught with that Huila, he knew it would create consequences because Shorty was running Izalco the way he wanted to run Izalco. And he was surrounding himself by all his followers and sympathizers. So I think there was a fear factor on the homeboy from Izalco as well. But he did what he was told because he knew at the end of the day if he didn't took care of what was being asked of him of the homeboys in that prison, it would have cost them their life as well. And also in that prison in Saco, there was a group of people that wasn't riding with Shorty. So the Ranfla Nacional, the historic Ranfla, had a little backing in Izalco, had a little juice and had a little pool because there were homeboys that belonged to either Diablito or to Crook or to Piguas or to Sierra's Barrio. They knew who these people were, so they tried to put him in place. But Shorty wasn't just your average person. When he started putting this plan in place for him to do the stuff that he needed to do, and Izalco, that there were people that were doing the bidding of the historic Ram Ramfla, and when he got there, he dispersed them. He stepped them down for the positions and put his own people in there in power to make sure that if anything, any will or anything will come to them, it will go straight to him. And I think that also affected Shorty because when he stepped a lot of homeboys down, a lot of homeboys didn't like it. So they didn't unite it to his movement that quick like he thought it would. Which was a mistake. I think he could have left them in place and trying to hear what the other team was thinking or what the other team was talking about and him going along with it. You gotta understand something about the Fulton's clique in order for you guys to understand Shorty history. When the MSS Stoners took place, the Fulton clique was one of the original lowriders that came from the lowrider movement. So they never really went through the whole Stoners phase. So that was one thing that Shorty had went through himself, and he understood the gang from inside out because he was old. He was 40. He knew he never went to the face, but he also recognized the homies from the MSSS, the Stoners. But Fulton basically considered himself the level-headed, like mid-range barrio, when the other barrios or their clique were formed of poor kids, poor people that come from El Salvador. Fulton was well known as like a middle class people that were known as the lowriders phase. They never went through the stoner phase. So that was one thing he had going for him, that he knew the history of his barrio really well, and a lot of people respect him. And like I said before, if you guys pay attention early, Izalco wasn't an MS penitentiary, so Shorty would have never been there. But during this flip and flop, Barrio 18 gave up Izalco and became basically something. When Diablito heard what was taking place with Shorty, he reached out to Shorty in an old-fashioned school coded way that he knew how to do it. He used a pastor that will go visit multiple prisoners, their leaders, and Zacatras, and people in Izalco and other penitentiaries that would take wars. The pastor later on, that got indictment, said he didn't know what was being said. He thought that Diablito was sending his homeboy a text message, a verse, or something from the Bible. He never once anticipated there was a threat. He said that all he knew was he was taking a verse out of the Bible and giving it to his homeboy from one of his older homeboys. He never once saw it as a threat. He never saw it that it was going to be dangerous. And he never saw it there was something that would cause rumbles through it. So when Diablito heard what was taking place with Shorty, he reached out to him, basically giving him a threat. So basically what happened in Izalco was Revolucionarios 18 and Sureños 18 have went at it with each other. And an effort for the prison people to try to reverse what had took place in 2000, to try to integrate both barrios, since the truth was taking place. They had moved Shorty and a couple of MS gang members to that faction, and they had the 18s in another sector. They couldn't be seen, they couldn't get touched, but basically Salco had became also a common ground to try to maneuver for the truth. So when that didn't took place and the killing happened, I believe it was today, 64 people got killed in El Salvador. They try to force the government again, Diablito, when the truth took place and they got lied and got played for. They trying to force another truth and another sit down with the government by doing a hunger strike, which it didn't work. The people didn't sit down and got back to negotiating with them. They said Charles. So Diablito was already frustrated with the government playing him, And now he had another problem to deal with, which was Shorty. So basically in July 2015, Shorty and the group he had formed decided to say, you know what, we don't want nothing to do with Diablito, his faction. We don't want nothing to do with these greedy people. We're gonna create our own car and we're gonna become our new Ramfla. So Shorty was basically disowning the barrio, disowning the homeboys, which was, I think, was his greatest mistake that he did. But he created a new Ramfla. And that's why I'm saying that the split almost happened, because if Shorty would have been successful on, Shorty would have never got killed, and this Ramfla would have never took place and got destroyed and got construed and deemed as bad, the split would have took place. So Shorty started his own Ramfla, which the program was called 503. That's where the 503 came from. Shorty created the new Ramfla and the new leadership by his own people and the people that will follow him without the okay of Diablito and the leaders, and called themselves the 503 program. When Diablito heard this, he was livid. He was like, how can this fool do that? How can this fool disrespect us like this? What the hell? He's trying to divide the barrio. The barrio has always been a one. It doesn't matter what problems we have. We always come out to fix it. So him creating a Ramfla was like a slap in the face for them. That was the most disrespectful thing any member of MS had done, because what Shorty was trying to do was split the barrio in two, and how Diablitos follow his followers follow Diablito, and Shorty get his followers and follow him, and create a whole new program that didn't have nothing to do with pursuing with the 18s or doing deals with the government. He didn't want nothing to do with that. If there was gonna be some type of dealings, he wanted transparency, and he wanted everything in writing. He wanted the homeboys to know that there wasn't gonna be mistreated, that if any deals were gonna be made with the government, that they were gonna get a piece of the pie. So when Diablito hears this, he decides to go ahead and say, you know what, this is the last step, this is the last crack. He calls the pastor dude, said, come visit me, I got a message for you to take back to Shorty. So Diablito called this pastor dude, basically trying to give him the last warning, because there had already been kites and messages trying to pass between them two. Diablito had trying to talk to Shorty, tell him, hey, don't do it. Shorty had disregarded him. He wasn't receiving no words. He didn't want nothing to do with it. So Diablito did the last thing that he thought he could do to try to get Shorty back in line. He called the pastor and told the pastor, go and tell him to read this chapter or this verb out of the Bible, John 38:11, which says, if you obey by my word, you are my true disciple. If you abide by my word, you are my true disciple. Anybody could have said he was just telling him, hey, just get in line, bro, you're going to be my disciple. But anybody that's been in the game knows that he's basically telling him, this is your last warning. Hear what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Obey what I'm giving you, the orders I'm giving you, or I'm going to chop you down, because you don't truly belong to my gang. You're truly disrespecting the hood, and you're not my disciple. You're not a disciple of Diablito. And Diablito is the face of the Ramfla Nacional, so he called himself the leader of the apostles. Shorty gets this message, decides to ignore it, which was the mistake. He decides to go full on to try to create their own program in 503, and 503 is going to be. So Diablito put in motion the plan to kill him. And here's when it took place. Before Shorty gets killed, before this message got sent to him, right after this message got sent to Shorty, he did was something that a lot of people thought was bold. He decided to show Diablito that he wasn't scared. He decided to say, you know what, bro, I'm just as gangster as you are, and I got people that can touch you and can touch yours outside too. Pigua was one of Diablito's lieutenants on the street. He was the one in charge of that parking lot where they used to sell cars for Diablito, and all the money used to go to Pigua and Diablito, so they were basically business partners on this car lot. So when Shorty get this message from Diablito, he felt like, oh, you think you're gonna scare me? You think I'm like one of those little kids, one of the little homies? Nah, Charles, homie, I show you that I can also command respect. So what did he do? He orchestrated the burning of the whole lot. So he sent the homeboys to burn Pigua's lot. There was half of it in Diablito, resulting in thousands of damages. But Pigua was not your usual gang member. The dude worked for the government. He was part of the government. No government didn't know he was a gang member, which is crazy. But the dude was working for the government on the mayor's office. And while he was receiving his $400 salary from the government, he was also making money and using the same money that he was doing to buy the guns from Mexico. And this dude was training homeboys to become part of a special force shock unit, basically. It was a unit to be ready on standby whenever the homeboys need to do a mission that were going just knock shit down. So Pigua was not your actual average gang member. He was smart. He was working for the government. They knew they would keep him. He would use that as a cover, as well as working for Diablito, making sure Diablito was straight and working for the hood and passing information along to Diablito. Because when you work in the mayor's office, you got access to information that not a lot of people have. So when this incident take place, that they burn his lot, he instantly calls Diablito and tell him, hey, homeboy, check this out. This is what took place right now. This fool Shorty sent these fools to burn the lot. We lost thousands of dollars of merchandise. What are we going to do about it? Diablito tells him, hold on, I'll get back at you. And like I said, Diablito, people was not your average gang member. He was the one right-hand man. And the indictment that he got caught later on, it came out that people was the one that gave the green light to the people in Izalco to go ahead and kill Shorty. This plan consists of speed and accuracy. He wanted this to be done quick and fast because he know that if people get a hold that Shorty was being attacked, his people was gonna try to go save him. But like I said, it was an easy target and it was an easy task because Shorty surrounded himself with 4 bodyguards. On January 6, 2016, the plan to kill Shorty took place. They put the plan in motion. January 6, 2016, the plan, people gives the green light coming from Diablito to the people inside. Basically let them know, go ahead, handle that business. We need it done now. So on January 6, 2016, the party armed with homemade knife, homemade shanks, and machetes take Shorty and his 4 bodyguards by surprise. It took nothing but a couple minutes to put him in a corner, corral them, and start to get to work. They chopped him down. They literally chopped into pieces Shorty and 2 of his bodyguards. One of them survived. The other one was nowhere to be found, which led me to believe probably he knew what was coming and left, or he didn't know. So Shorty gets killed on January 6, 2016. A lot of people had a lot of speculations. The indictment said people was the one in green light. Diablito trying to wash his hands saying, I didn't get the homie touch. And this is what has become known as the end of the revolutionary. Did the MS-13, that was the end of the revolutionary? Nah, because when Shorty died, a lot of homeboys still felt the same way regarding that. So Shorty became like a Martin, and that's why I say that I was gonna make this video as an homage to him, not because he was a gang member, an homage to pay my respects, my dues to him, due to he stood up to the false, he stood up to the hypocrites, and trying to make something better for his people. And when MS got created in LA, it was created to defend his own people. He wanted back the old roots. He wanted to create something that was defending his people and not just like the older homies that had gotten the positions would run in the barrio, just like the Mexican mafia runs the whole gang. And that's something that a lot of people didn't agree and wasn't liking it because it was just for their own benefit. you got to keep in mind, you got soldados out there that are struggling, that they have kids that can't even get at work because they're all tired up. But yeah, you got these leaders that are sending these kids to missions and killings and group propaganda, sitting them on mansions, got in houses, got the wife and the mother houses, driving cars. They got their money stacked up in the books. Money's coming to them. They taking care of the people that are following them. So Shorty wanted something to change. He wanted a change for the barrio, just like a lot of people have been asking. That's why a lot of people have dropped out here in California from the barrio, because the barrio became just like another image of the Mexican mafia. They start using the barrio as their own money making machine for their own benefit. And it's still happening to this day. Yeah, the Mexican mafia gave MS a carnal, Cisco from Fulton's. Like I said, Fulton is an old generation clique. But here goes the peep. Cisco denies he's being Salvadorian. He's telling everybody he's Mexican, which is known that he's Salvadorian. I will make the video regarding him down the road, the case why he was busted for and everything. I got the paperwork. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna do a little bit more digging, and I'm gonna tell you guys, because a lot of people saying Mula was not the first Salvadorian MS. Before Mula got made, yeah, there were two other carnales from MS that got made, Little One and Dreamer. I will make videos about them as well. But they're both were Mexicans. The only difference between Cisco and Mula were they were Salvadorians. Yeah, there was the rumors that were gonna make the homeboy guilty from Hollywood as well, but it had never took place. And he was another person that I never really liked, because when he used to speak about the homeboys from El Salvador, he would call them Indios, like a bunch of indigenous. He would refer to them in a disrespectful manner, because he had a grudge against a lot of the older homeboys from Hollywood, Diablito being one of them, Criminal being one of them, Tucker being one of them, Rebelde being one of them for Normandy. So he had a friction with a lot of the homeboys. But I give my respects and I give my salutes and I tip my hat to the fallen soldier, Shorty. And I will say why. Because he was trying to bring back something that we lost as a community. We lost as people, as gente. He was trying to bring back, let's help the less fortunate. Let's help the barrio. Let's start taxing our people. Let's start bullying our people out of their merchandise. Let's start doing this. Let's start forcing little homitos to jump into the game, which is one of the rules that they had changed when the Ranfla Nacional took place in those early 2010s. That if you live around the area and used to kick with the homies, you needed to jump in. If not, you needed to get out of there because they want to kill you. We didn't force homeboys back then to join the gang, which was a trip. So did they make Shorty and Martin? Did the end of the revolutionary stop there with him? Did the idea die? It almost split the whole barrio in two, because Shorty had a lot of backing. And that's why I said the split almost happened. If Shorty would have stood alive, and if he would have got a hold and he would have saw the pegada coming, the hit coming, he probably would have got ready and went to battle with these people. And to this day, probably the battle would have continued. Either Shorty getting killed or Diablito and his followers getting killed. I'm not wishing violence or harm on any of them, but I think we need to go back to our old school roots, man. Helping our gente, helping each other. We created MS to stop the bullying against our own gente in LA. But we doing the same thing Mexican mafia is doing to the Sureños. The homeboys in positions are doing the same thing to the homitos, man. They're bullying them, taxing, they're doing this and doing that. So I believe, and I would have stood with Shorty if I was still gangbanging. I believe that he could have made a difference and change on the barrio, because that's what he wanted to do. But we would never know what would have happened, because now he's gone. Because of hypocrites, or malicious, of jealousies, and because he had an idea that not a lot of people agree with. That's why he was killed. With that said, gente, I know it's a long video. I know it took a long time, but I said I was gonna take my time to speak it slowly and clear so you guys can understand. It's gonna be breaking down in 2 parts. If you guys want to know more about the revolutionary, the gang, and the homeboys, let me know. I would love to break it down to you guys just like I did this video. With that being said, you guys always know what I tell you, man. Let's be kind to one another. Let's tell each other that we love you today because tomorrow is never promised. Tomorrow might be too late. With that said, let's get it, rebels.